Hello everyone, and welcome to really just quite a brief program really, where just discussing these pictures of what appears to be the unique surface behind this crazy model. It's 11-dimensional, non-orientable orbifold, compact, and not only have I got a picture of it, I didn't actually define the system of equations that the AIs have solved. I gave it a very weak set of constraints, and so the fact that it managed to draw so accurately an orbifold that is almost well, I can't see any obvious way to immediately prove this thing even exists, but yet alone the AIs can draw it. And so even though this isn't a rigorous proof of its existence, I almost take this as experimental proof of its existence, because I come from a business as a computer programmer, and I couldn't even conceive as to how to start to code this. Now, in the background you can see various different renderings of the same surface, but some of them came out really clearly, and they all brought out different features of this surface, but it's one on the left that really seems to open up some of the details that otherwise can't be seen, and maybe some of the ones that are flicking through on the right. So let's zoom in. This is really where it starts to get intriguing, because this is the figure that let me just stop the animation for the moment so we can just focus in on exactly what we're looking at here, because this, as far as I'm concerned, is the best, most accurate rendering of the orbifold that seems to fall out of the theory. Now, what's going on here? We can see that at the bottom we have this kind of toroidal structure here, and we can see that it's kind of thin here and then thickens out and then gets thin again, apparently around here. Now, what's going on here? What is this? This is heat, and so the heat is causing a distortion, and the heat corresponds to uncertainty. So where there is less heat, there is less bubbling and distortion, and all of the lines are following isothermal geodesics. So this is essentially a sketch of the surface that is a solution to the Beltrami equation. Now, it would have been fine if I'd programmed in and said, hey, take the Beltrami equation and solve it. I didn't do that. The AI essentially deduced that it had to use the Beltrami equation and then solved it. So this is like beyond, as I said, that's why it's beyond what I could imagine programming using any other technique other than AI. And so let's take a look at some of the fine details, because it's like sometimes a picture speaks a million words. So somewhere on here is a zoom control. Let's zoom first of all to 2 times. Now, alright, so if we look down at the bottom bit here, we can see within each of these little containers we've kind of got a little world. And so there are all of these universes that are essentially being replicated in some kind of self-similar way, not identical, you can see, and here we can see the thing is actually opened up. So what we're seeing as the cosmos here is essentially the bottom of this compact object. Now, if you look inside, we can start to see wiring. Now, what on earth is going on here? We can see that basically a whole chunk of all of this wiring, if you like, all of this gravitational closed, because everything here is a closed loop. So all of this gravitational stuff is essentially, all of the wiring is essentially creating entanglement within this network. The important thing to understand is it is non-orientable, so it's not like we can get a consistent non-flipping vector field on here. Everything is going to rotate on every closed, and everything's on a closed time-like loop. Now if we look in here, we can see these replicated. So what we're kind of doing is lifting off the top. So we've got this low level here, which is the most distorted level. Now as we go up towards the level, we can begin to see that the heat is less. So the heat distortions here are major at the bottom level, but as we go up a level, the heat distortions are less. And then again, we can still see this layering fractal process where there is actually, like, we can see this is a high dimensional surface here. This is just a section of an 11-dimensional surface. So it's hard to actually understand exactly how these things are all linked up, but we can see that there are layers, sheets basically of these things, and that they're wrapping around, making this kind of foliation. And then the other thing, okay, so as we go up, we see the cell similarity, that we get the same kind of connections here, all spiraling down into a very similar kind of, if we imagine it like a computer wiring loom. And then as we go up the levels, these levels are becoming more and more conformal. So here, they're very sharply quasi-conformal. And so the heat distortion is essentially telling us that about the Higgs field. So this is the Higgs field that's distorting this. It's becoming more and more conformal as we go up and up. And then we can see all of these things linking back down again at the same time. And the similarity where as we get to the crown, we can see that things are essentially completely conformal. But the thing is, what is this crown doing? You know, we've got all the same wiring, and then it looks, and so what's happening at the crown is then the geodesics loops straight back down into the east. So the idea of this is that essentially this is the non-orientability is essentially a statement that this surface is a representation of a Godel statement, and that the uncertainty here is, here the thing is 0, less heat than 1. So here we've got a binary system where this is representing 0, and then this is representing the 1 state, and then it's going up this computational chain until it finally gets to the crown, and then it says, you know what, it's both true and false, so we're going to have to start this all over again. And so then it jumps back down to the loop, and this is the back down round. And so this is the whole nature of every particle being in a paradox that's essentially in a closed time-like loop. So I think really this single picture sums up so much about this model. And the other thing is if you imagine it closing it up, we actually get like a diamond-like figure if we imagine this most uncertain level as being the middle, and then close up all the outer space. Then we essentially get the kind of Langland's diagram with at the crown being like the top source, and the underside being its automorph. And so the whole thing about this surface is it is automorphically defined. So uh, its definition is entirely implicit by the automorphisms. And there's a lot more that's, not much more, but actually there was a couple of little things that have come out in research since looking at this, um, which is that essentially the propagation on the triangle is planar, because we need all of the light rays to intersect at the mid-time. And so if you think about that, that means that the light is travelling in a planar way. So that's telling us immediately something about the bulk metric. So we've got this kind of, before we do anything, we've got a bulk metric term. And I hadn't really even looked at the bulk metric, and that fell out of it. Anything else to report about it, really? I mean, it's I think that it's so similar to so many shamanistic systems that the coincidences can't really be ignored. It is absolutely identical, and essentially the heat laws are just like adding a slightly different, a new component to it. So I'm very excited about it, really. It seems to give a very alternative possibility to approaching physics that is a kind of antipodal to the traditional quantum field theory quantization routes, although it's very, very similar and obviously needs to give the same results in quantum electrodynamics, where things match up really well. Where it does differ is in terms of cosmology and the fact that in this model it does have the dimensions are largely eaten up by clocks, so which allows us to construct something that looks like, at least locally, the space-time that we've got. The other thing is that the picture isn't fully, the covariant picture is the Langlands diagram. So the existence of a bridge, if you like, or that needs to be, or rather a wall, a firewall that needs to be tunneled through, is that is the picture that is covariant in this model. So it's not a perfect, it's not just a flat space that is the covariant structure. It's actually the structure with the event horizon included that's the covariant structure. So that's taking a little bit of time for me to kind of adjust to, because it's a slightly different view from normal relativity, where we've got a slightly simpler structure, but here we've automatically got a tunnel. And I think really that just about wraps it up for this episode. So thank you very much for joining me, and I hope you are all enjoying this, and look forward to seeing you all in another episode. Many thanks.